Testing. 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 Is it working?
Is that number 3? Yeah, 3 is always lower, and the mic volume is here. Do testing again.
Testing.
Yep, you're bouncing to the top, so it's fine.
Okay.
You looking for the PowerPoint?
No, I got the PowerPoint.
To start.
I'm looking for the slideshow now.
Here, up here,
Ah. There's a.
and then from the beginning.
Okay.
You're set.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Going to start with the announcements. Next week, Bev Kenworthy is going to give a presentation, Penguins, Birds That Bite But Can't Fly. And then after that, on the 21st, Jerry Jelinek, one of our own members, is going to do a presentation on trumpet swans. From what I understand, he's gone around and made a study of swans and is going to give a talk about it. June 28th, our first competition. It's going to be a creative projection competition. And then July 5th, How to Shoot in Hard Light Situations by Scott Robert Lynn. 4th of July fireworks cruise field trip. Last I checked, there were about 8 openings still. That was a couple of days ago. It's open to the public and to members. We were thinking about, in about a week, if we don't sell out, we were thinking about maybe talking to some of the other camera clubs in the area, maybe the Akron Camera Club and Erie Shores, and see if they would like to join us. CPS Westlake Porter Library Exhibit. It's ongoing. It started June 2nd. If you happen to be in the area, please stop in and check out some of your members' photographs. Fundamentals of Good Photography. It's a summer virtual course. Enrollment started June 1st. Sign up. Let's get some new members in the club. Looking for a chair for the competition committee. Gotta find another chair. I'm currently fulfilling the position, and I can't go in 2 different directions, so please consider being chair of the competition committee. As usual, all our announcements are on the YouTube website. Click on the little icon up in the corner on the CPS website, and then click on Live, and it'll bring up all the YouTube videos. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Richard Ader. He's going to talk about photographing India.
Thanks, Dave. Let me have the little clicker here. You want to bring up the...
You got it.
Okay. Just a few notes before I get rid of this. There we go. Okay, photographing India. What I'm going to try to do is make this not a travelogue and whatnot, But photographically, since this is the camera club, to let you know some of the challenges, whatnot, how I did this and how I went about this. As you know, what I like to do is more street photography type things. So first of all, India, where is it? I know, basic. India is here in the middle. India is in Asia. It's surrounded by fairly hostile. China is over here. It's a hostile border. Pakistan is a hostile border over here. China achieved its independence in 1947 from the British, and at that time it encompassed all of Bangladesh and Pakistan broke off into two Muslim areas. It was West Pakistan and East Pakistan, which later became Bangladesh. This is still a hostile border over here, and the Kashmir is a disputed territory between India and Pakistan up north. So again, it has its own problems too, but here it gives you an idea location. In India itself, it's divided into 28 states, and Rajasthan, which we're going to visit today, is the biggest, and it's nestled here in the mid portion up against the Pakistani border there as well. And in Rajasthan, what we are going to do is travel. Now the capital is Delhi. It is not New Delhi. It's just Delhi. Delhi has a section that is built up and new called New Delhi, and it has a part that's old that's called Old Delhi. Yes, Old Delhi. That's it. But that's the city there. So we'll start in New Delhi, we'll fly into, then go to Jaipur, on then to a national park, Ragathon, then further down south in Rajasthan to Udaipur, and then over by the Pakistani border, which is more desert out here, to Jaisalmer, back towards Jodhpur, over then to a bird sanctuary in Baktor, and I didn't have a choice of picking that. Without people, I was lost, but we were stopping there, so you'll see that. And then on to Agra, which is the Taj Mahal. So that is going to be our journey today. Equipment and techniques, any of the pictures I did here, there's nothing special. You could do with any of your cameras. My lens, I used a Nikon Z7 II. My lenses were 70 to 200, which was on most of the time. That's my standard lens for this type of photography. I also had a 24 to 70, which I used occasionally, and a 500 PF, which I used occasionally as well. But the settings I used, again, very simple. I use spot focusing. I don't use any eye detection too. It just doesn't work for me or the situations that I use. So spot focusing, just like on all your cameras. I use manual mode, shutter priority, and aperture priority, depending on the situation. So I'm going back and forth, so there's no right or wrong for any of this. So no special equipment, and again, anybody's camera out there could do any of these shots at all. And also, I bring up that with people, we had a documentary photographer last time who talked about always asking before taking someone's picture and whatnot. I never ask before. And the problem is, over a long period of experience, is when you ask, then people want to, okay, fine, you could take it. And they stand there expecting to perform, smile or do something. And it's just, most of the time, it's usually not natural in my experience. Sometimes it works, but most of the time it doesn't. But I will take these pictures and I want to get people in their natural environment as they are working. Sometimes they will turn and see me photographing them, and they don't mind. And actually, sometimes that works out well when they're looking at you. You haven't asked them to perform. They're engaging with you, and sometimes those pictures are the best too. If at any time someone notices me taking a picture and they put up their hand or no picture, I will never take the picture and tell them, no worry, no problems. So that is how I go about these. I'm trying to get people in their natural environment. So we land in Delhi, and the first thing that gets you as you drive from the airport, there are 1.4 billion people in India. It has surpassed China by the time we got there, which is 1.3 billion, I think, as well. And they are all out on the streets, too. The markets are out on the streets, the people are out on the streets, the cars are out on the streets, and what you see are a lot of these kind of single-engine vehicles, these tuk-tuk type things, and the motorcycles dominate there. And you'll see there is just constant traffic. It doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter what time of day. So this was just a shot of our, and amazing. Our driver is driving us from the airport in one of these giant buses, which I have no idea how they maneuver these, but they do. And you start to see some of the street scenes. A lot of these, they're bicycle vehicles that take a lot of people around, as well as the motorized ones. You can get all kinds of portraits on the street. What overwhelms you when you come to India and makes India a bit different are the colors. The colors are just really unbelievable, bright colors. Interesting things, mixture of Hindi and English on a lot of the posters you see. And what you'll start to see, and what makes it interesting, is when you go there, if you learn a little bit about the culture, it makes it interesting because dress is the key here. And different parts of the country and parts of Asia have different dress. And we'll see more of this. These types of turbans, the Sikhs wear a special turban that's higher. In Rajasthan, a lot of them wear this type of turban, which is called padri. There are Himalaya caps that we'll see, and saris, which are long unstitched strips of cloth that make the women's garment. It's all one garment that's just put around them like that. But you'll start to see these and be able to see what part of India people are from. Here is the Sikhs, which are usually up north. This is part of their religion. You'll see that turban and the beard. So you'll recognize the Sikhs there. This is the shalwar kameez. This is very common in this part of Asia, Pakistan and India, not so much Southeast Asia. The shalwar kameez the shalwar are the pants that are the loosely baggy fitting pants. The kameez is the top garment that usually goes down to the knees. And you'll see that a lot. In Pakistan, you'll see it in India, more in the western part where we are too. So you'll start to recognize these and the headgear people use. And here you could see another shalwar kameez. That's that typical type of dress that you see in this part of India. Everything occurs on the streets, not only the people, the vendors, a lot of these non-motorized vehicles that carry people, as well as groceries and everything else, propane. It's just an entire street scene as well. Lots of things to get pictures of. Things are just piled high. Again, I use the 70 to 200 because it gives you that kind of reach available. A lot of phones. 1.4 billion people translates into about 1.8 billion phones, too. And nowadays, with street photography, that's the hardest thing, is to find people without their phones. But here, we see these streets are narrow. And we were in, at this time, a little motorized vehicle that was going up the sides of the streets as well, down here. And usually when you're in there, these guys are speeding, you're going pretty fast, and you're passing some interesting things. And, actually it didn't project there. So what I thought then is, with this, I decided to experiment. This is the first time I've ever done this. As you're going in a moving car or in a fast vehicle down the street, is there a way to get some of these pictures that you're missing otherwise, because you have no time to hold up. You're going 20 miles an hour. By the time something's in your viewfinder, it's gone. So, shooting from a moving vehicle. I gave this a try. I used a 24 mil, my 24 to 70, I set it to 24. Why? Because that takes in the most, and the depth of field for any given f-stop is going to be the biggest. So in case I miss my target, if I pick up something in front or back, maybe he'll still be in it. Manual mode, because I want to shoot 1,000th of a second because I'm bumping along in the tuk-tuk there, or the electric vehicle going down there. So you're moving 1,000th of a second would freeze the action, and F16 to give me the biggest depth of field. So with 24 millimeters, 1,000th of a second for the movement, F16, I decided just to hold the camera, not by my eye, not looking at the back, but just at things on the side, and use it almost like a gun, like a handgun. Is just, if something seemed interesting coming up, just do that and just click some things, and hoping that the autofocus would just get him or something around him in it, and if it was something around them, that the depth of field would get it. I said, let me see. The rate of actually good pictures was upwards of 60%, which is more than I thought it would be, like 1 or 2% too. It's a technique that works. And back button focus, so again, you don't have to look. And continue, of course, continuous focus mode, because again, you want to keep your finger on that back button focus, because wherever you point the camera, it's continuously focusing, and you want it, when you have it pointed at what you think is the person or near him, to be able just to click the shutter. And here is one, as we drove by, and doing pretty fast, and we're zooming around, this is a picture I would not have been able to get. We were coming, this is the camera down at my side, just pressing and shooting blindly. Again, it's tack sharp. Even if it hit the wall, there's enough depth of field that no matter where it hit here, even if I was off, they'd be in the focus region. So it's another technique then. Yeah, Joe?
Richard, what was your ISO?
ISO in this, I set my ISO at 400 around, even in the sunlight, so that gives me enough latitude to use it there. So I set it to ISO 400, but then I use auto ISO, so that if it's an alleyway or something and it bumps it up to 1,000, I don't have to worry about that. So I'm in manual mode with those things fixed, and the auto ISO then takes care of any change in light. So I forgot about that. It's a good point, Joe. Here is another one. A guy on they cut these mangoes or whatever they are in half, put a straw in, and they drink out of it. But this is as we zoomed by at about 20 miles an hour. And I just held it up. Whether the focus point hit the mangoes over here, hit him or whatnot, or the motorcycle, the depth of field was enough to get everything in focus. So these are pictures that you would not be able to get otherwise. So it's something to keep in mind, because I was able to get a fair amount of street scenes that were just unobtainable. And again, this is with the camera down at my side. This was just a scene in a park. Again, the 70 to 200, you can catch some natural scenes. And again, the 70 to 200 I like is nice because, I like people just sitting. They were people sitting in this temple, just on the side, just relaxing, and you're able, without being too close and obtrusive, to get some just nice, pensive pictures when they were there. So these were some of the portraits. Again, a little girl just playing up there, and you're able to pull off a nice shot. And 200 is not that far, but again, you're able to get some of them just in the natural environment. Then we went on to Jaipur next, the next city. So there, we headed south to Jaipur. Now in Jaipur, I used this as an example of, I was in a hotel, I was on the 15th floor, and the sun was setting, and there was this right in the middle. You could see the sunspots and everything, but this was right in the middle, framed, and I thought, that's a really good picture. But wait, it's through glass. The glass isn't going to work. I've got a handhold. Maybe I could no, let me get it anyway. In those 30 seconds of mentally just screwing around, I took the picture, but by that time, sunsets, things move fast. So it went from being a nice picture in the middle, in 30 seconds, as I'm thinking what to do, it moved over. So I use this as a lesson in sunsets, to just take the picture first, think later. Again, but that is just sunset there. These are just some portraits in and around Jaipur. Again, everything, all the vendors, the vast majority of things are sold on the street. All types of people there. India is a society that's interesting. It is fairly, it depends on the country, the tolerance for different lifestyles too. India is tolerant on this, but has a problem religious-wise too, in terms of what they tolerate and don't. It's very interesting culturally. Again, the three types of transportation are those tuk-tuk motorized ones, the pedaled ones, and motorcycles. And you'll see a ton of motorcycles. And it's very interesting, as opposed to Saigon or Ho Chi Minh City or Hanoi, where there's a ton of them too. They are like the little polished Vespa scooters and whatnot, or motor scooters too. And these are the out and out. A lot of these are just bigger bikes or medium-sized dirt bikes too. And you'll see a lot, and that's the predominant type of motorcycle here. And again, a lot of them. The colors, this is one of those saris. Again, sari is usually a single piece of cloth that's wrapped around and dressed with a bare midriff as well, which you could see that too. But the colors are just tremendous too. A lot of the street scenes, again, extremely colorful. You could see the sari there. Very colorful reds and oranges too. And again, one of the reasons I like the 7200 is you can get, I like to get people while they're working, again too. So these type of things, and even when they look up sometimes, that works fine. Sometimes close in. This is where I'll use aperture priority. A big problem is always depth of field. When you're down in close like this too, it's easy just to get one finger in focus and the rest out. So in this, I'll flip to aperture priority up to f16. Again, on auto ISO, I don't care where that is. Again, just because to get the depth of field in these closer ones. And that's the look that I wanted artistically. Again, like you could see the sari, the single wrap, very, very colorful, and you see the difference in generations. The younger generation will be traditionally dressed, and they'll just be the older generation sometimes dressed differently, and again, you see this contrast all the time. But there's always just a lot of action out on the street as well. You'll see in some, and I think we saw it before too, the dot on the forehead. That's called the third eye, and that's part of the Hindu religion. And there's a lot of thought in terms of what this is. Something that has to do with the god Shiva. It's a sign of knowledge. It helps with the detection of evil. So that is part of the Hindu religion. It's called the third eye, and you will see that on a lot of the men and women there. Also, again, some very just interesting type of people there as well. And you can see the opportunity for street portraiture is nice. A ton of monkeys, not a half ton, a full ton of monkeys per city. They are all over. They are not religious. It's not like, well, we leave them there. It's that they're the equivalent of our squirrels or pigeons. You can't get rid of them. And these monkeys are smart. They know they'll be in your pocket. Odds are if you feel something in your back pocket, it is not a pickpocket, even if you're in a crowd. It's a monkey. And they are, again, because this is how they make their living, and they are smart, and you really have to watch for them. Again, very interesting people. This I shot from down below. With the 200, I was about 10 feet away. But if you get down on your knees, you can get a shot like this. Again, and usually after a shot or two, I'll take 2 or 3, and then someone will notice I'm there and look, but by that time, you've got a shot. And I'm being watched at all times. You don't have to worry about a surveillance system there. The monkeys will watch you. Again, they are all over. In cities, you could be in New Delhi or whatnot or anything. It could be the most modern building too. The monkeys will be there. They are underfoot. They are all over. Again, interesting street scenes. You'll see a lot of people, a lot of different dress. But again, it's like the old Brooklyn, New York. People live out on the streets. And a lot of these smaller cities, air conditioning, there's not much. It gets hot. And people just live out on the stoop, or they're just talking, smoking. Open air markets. Most all the markets there are open air, open to the street. So there's no door here that you go in. It's all just open. And people will sit there. You notice the shalwar kameez and the cap there too, bare feet. And this is just again, and the welcome sign. But this is it's a little tea shop and bookstore there. And again, it's a very, very interesting area and photographically just rich because of the difference in cultures, the young, the old, the colorfulness of it, the different manners of dress between the old and the new. And here again, you could see the stores are open air, not as we're used to here where there's a door and you go in and whatnot. It's all just on the street there. And it's a very, very interesting setup. And then there are the cows. Cows are a part of the religious scheme there. They are sacred. A lot of these cows are kind of a possession. They're like not owned by anyone. They're just part of the city. And they just roam and they eat where they want to. They just do anything. And the roads are theirs too. And you can see this motorcycle swerve. It was funny. I was getting set just to shoot this cow when the motorcycle came into the picture and swerved to avoid because he took a step at the last second in, and cows have the right of way. That is not in our handbook here when I went for my driver's license there. But they absolutely do there, and it's another thing you see. That it just is, what makes it unusual is as you're there as a Westerner, doesn't anyone see there's a cow in the street? No, because to them it's totally normal. Or there's a monkey in my pocket. It's like, what's so unusual? I mean, this is just like, and after a while, by the end of your trip, you're the same way. I mean, it's another cow in the street. Again, saris, which are very, very colorful. Again, very, very interesting. Photographically, just a lot there. Kids, always great. I shot this through the alleyway here. There's some kids just playing there. And again, this is one of those things where the kids will, they see you and whatnot, but that makes for a good picture as well. And by the way, if there are any questions during this too, just yell it out, raise your hand, that's fine. Again, more of the open shops, which I found not only fascinating, but photographically very, very interesting, in that there's just all kinds, it doesn't matter what the type of wares they're selling, it's just everything. You'll find everything out on the street like this. And the shop owners will just sit there all day and, sell their wares. You will see a lot of the old handlebar mustaches, which are some of the older residents will use, but you'll see that a lot in Rajasthan. It's very popular there, the handlebar mustache. And again, always colorful colors. Again, these are weavers out on the street. They are there just making blankets, weaving, and they will do this out on the street because it's just a comfortable place to do that. They'll put a mat down and work there. But again, the colorful nature of this, and I just found that fascinating as well. And again, it always helps. This is at street level. One of the most useful things I found is just getting down on your knee a lot of times. Getting down on your knee just to get at eye level of something that's lower than you, again, could make the picture. And then I found these two ladies that were dressed in traditional dress, and I followed them around for a bit because I just found them just very, very interesting with their dress. You could see the third eye there too, the gowns. This was one from one of the ones I entered too. This was outside one of the hotels. They had a giant chessboard, I guess it is, or board of something. Again, she was down. I got down. I was laying on the ground for this. I wanted to use a wide angle to get as much in focus as I can and get that shot of looking up so that she looked a little bigger. So sometimes for these, not just candids, but you'll purposely try to get a certain effect. So this was one I was laying on the ground for. She was over by a mirror, and that's just her reflection in the mirror that I wanted to get, just to see. And the two of them together. Yes? Red for weddings? I don't know. I saw a lot of red. There were a lot of reds and orange and blues. It didn't seem to, so I don't know. Red might be a color they wear at weddings, like we wear white, but there's also red out on the streets a lot. So I don't know. That I'd have to plead ignorance on. Yeah. Is that an indication of the caste system? I do not think that the dress or the color is an indication of caste. There is some color that indicates caste that we'll get into in one of the other cities. I don't know that it's the dress. Now, the spot on the heads, I think, is just part of the Hindu religion. It's part of Hinduism as well, but that's not a caste thing. The caste thing is still very active there with the Brahmin on top, the highest caste, and they occupy a lot of government positions down to, I think, the Dalit, the lowest caste too. So you will see that. You will see that mostly in the occupations, not so much, I think, in dress too. I'm not an expert on that. There was another question? Yeah. Well, on some of them, could you comment on the income of the people as well? It's interesting, the economy of India, it's 55% service, 26% industrial, and 18% agriculture. There is a caste system there. The income, I think the standard probably like here, the only way I was able to tell out there is by the jobs people are doing and the way they're dressed too. I don't know if there's any other identifiable way to really tell, but mostly the people who are doing the problem is, even though their industrial growth has been high, it's all, rather than automated, it's all hand labor, hand weaving, hand doing this, and that doesn't pay a lot. And so you'll see we'll see later on, a lot of the sweeping is done by women with just these big handmade brooms whereas we have that all automated over here. And so those are probably for the lower paying jobs, but no, none that I know of no other way to identify that too. And then what Jaipur is most famous for is the Pink Palace. And everywhere you've seen a lot of pictures of this. This was built by the Maharajas in 1799 out of red pink sandstone. And contrary, and I took it from this angle because it's not a building like most people think. You'll notice it's blank behind here. And this was built, this is part of a palace complex. And the women were always separated from the men and not allowed to mix with the men. And this was built as a facade so that behind it has seats so that there's like a walkway, so that the women were able to sit and look out the windows at life going on outside, but no one would be able to see them. And they'd be outdoors, in a sense, so they'd get some fresh air. So this is literally a facade with a walkway in the back so that the women back then could sit there and watch life going by below, but could not be seen. So that is the Pink Palace, and you'll see that it's what the city is most famous for. And when people usually see it from this view, they think it is a building, but it is a building, but this thing here is a facade only, with nothing in back of it as well. So very, very interesting type of structure. And again, it's the tourist spot in Jaipur. So this is what everyone comes to Jaipur to see. But where you have tourists, you also have cobras and snakes, which is not something you see in Times Square. I could vouch for that. you'll see everything else. But I was trying to get a shot, and I was backing up for the Pink Palace, and I heard something in back of me and turned around, and my backside was about an inch from this cobra. And this is not something, again, as a former New Yorker, I am used to. There's just nothing in my, other than to take a picture of it, too. But I think I'm off on my focus. I was a little rattled here as well. So this is my one shot of the cobra. And there is, of course, the snake charmer as well. Here's like old Louis Armstrong there. That's a hard pipe to blow. It's a handmade pipe. You know, snakes want, good music and things too. So he is working his way there with the snakes. That is another shot of the front, just a close-up of the Pink Palace. So you could see these were all windows with the women all sitting behind, just looking out on the street scenes. Okay. And this was, again, had I had more thought in my mind and I wasn't so rattled, I would have used an f/16 or a higher f-stop, aperture priority to get the snake and the guy, but I just wanted to grab a shot and put some distance between myself and the cobra. Because people ask me, is that a real cobra? Well, one, it's a real cobra, but is it defanged or devenomized? I have no clue. I did not care as well. But so I grabbed a shot and moved on along there as well. Yes?
What do they do with them? Is that just a tourist stop, or are they getting ready to eat them?
The snakes I think are just for the tourists. Yes, you'll see that. The snake charmers they're snake charmers. They'll play that. The snakes will do all kinds of funny things. And I think they put them back in that carrying thing. Yeah, that's how they carry them. And they take them there. But I don't think there's any functional thing to this. They're not eaten or whatnot. This is purely just a tourist thing as well. Do I see any what? No, usually probably have to go a few blocks before you drop. So I wasn't I wasn't looking around. And I literally know nothing about it. I just know that it's not a snake that I'm from Northeast Ohio here. You see a snake, it's a garter snake or whatnot, nothing. But this is just, again, I snapped my picture, wrong f-stop, I'm out of there. Again, nice. You see the kids on there. I think these kids are going to some type of boarding school. This is like a uniform they were wearing. They were watching the tourists, watching the snakes, again, off to the side. So I decided to watch them, watch the tourists, watch the snakes, too. It's always nice on the streets when people are preoccupied by something else. They're looking at something else. It gives you an opportunity to get some candids while they're looking over there. And they were, again, looking at the snakes. Outside of Jaipur, you will see a lot from the Maharajas era, back in the 1700s, before India was a state. There were all different types of empires there. You'll see a lot of old fortresses around some of these cities. And elephant travel is still used in some spots, and people will get around by elephants. Elephants are also very popular. The biggest event is in weddings. If you have expensive weddings, that is the thing to have, is the elephant there as well. But again, in some of these, you'll see around the city, elephants just taking people around. I think, again, it's not that more functional thing, more for the tourists. And here you'll see, I found, again, what's very interesting, and I was just enamored by the colors. The bright yellows, the bright oranges, and how much work there is done manually. You could see these are kind of put together more, homemade whisk brushes too. And these women who are on break now, this was a temple area, and their job is just to walk around and all day, every day, just brush with that as well. Again, again, very impressed. But the colors, and again, you see the phones. Always the phone. It doesn't matter what the income is. There is always a phone, always a reception somewhere. But again, the contrast too of this old style. Again, it's just the fibers. There's no handle or anything. It's just the fibers just bound together there too. So again, a very interesting set of just way of life. Again, a lot of things by hand. All the plastering is done. And this touch-up work, there's touch-up work all around this huge temple, is all just done, the plaster work by hand. This man just moves around day in, day out, just taking care of the cracks again. So, a lot of this, this manual labor that is very, very impressive. Again, this was a woman who was doing some of the plastering too. You see the plaster dishes there. In her, one of the nice things about the 70 to 200 is at 200, you can get a shallow depth of field sometimes to blur the back at most of the f-stops. Again, you could see people's houses, again, decorated, very nice, bright colors, and you see what looks like the swastikas there. Those are not swastikas. That sign, actually, it's a Hindu swastika. This actually goes back, it dates, BC. It's a symbol of peace. And this is it. The Germans co-opted this and put it at a 45-degree angle. And that's the German swastika is this, but at an angle. You notice this one is flush to the ground. So it's like flat. The German one, which they actually took this and co-opted it, is turned at a 45-degree angle as well. So some people, they go and they see this, and if you don't know the history, just assume, and you'll find this all over Southeast Asia, they'll just assume this is something nefarious or whatnot too, but it is not. This predated long ago. Now, I'm in trouble there. Is Brian, are you Googling a swastika to see if the German one is tilted? Okay, well, okay, yes, that's what I mean. Okay, that's hopefully this talk tonight will stand up under investigation here. Again, it gets back, this is just off the road. The road is out here, and out almost on the road, you'll see a lot of this work is, again, manual. The weaving of the rugs, this huge rug here, is all done by hand. Here is the wool up here. It's just hanging on a piece of wood, a log that goes across, sitting on that, and here's an old scimitar-type knife, and they will just work on that, just day in, day out. And there are many, all the way, I didn't get the shot, but down the road there are just many like him all working there. So again, with the amount of people there, it is amazing how much of the labor is hand labor. Again, sometimes when they notice you're taking a picture and look at you, you can get that engaging shot too, which I really liked in this young man as well. However, my experience has been, if I to ask, can I take your picture? They want to oblige, they do, and they will smile or do something too that just doesn't look natural too. So he just noticed me and just gave a little grin, and that was fine. And that's why. These are some of the priests there. The priests are they're photogenic. What can they are nice, they are there, they are out on the streets as well, and they are real priests. This is not for the tourists or anything else, and you'll find them sometimes in the alleyways. And again, just very, very interesting subjects. Here's where I got religion and realized we went up to the top of this 2 or 3 story abandoned temple. So he wanted to show me what it is. This is a traffic circle. And I noticed then, when you realize in India is, how does this all work? You have 1.4 billion people. There are no stop signs. There's no traffic lights in most of these places. There are cows. There's no crosswalks. How does it work? And as I went up there, I stood and I watched for a while. And the mass of humanity, people walking in the middle and whatnot, it works. There are rules of the road. They told me when you cross, just don't go fast, because we walk slowly, the person on the cycle or whatnot, they could see the path you're taking and swerve around you easily. So if you walk at a nice slow pace across the street, it's easy for them just to zip around you like that as well. because you're predictable. And I watched, and the whole thing works. I mean, you try this in New York City, and there would be 18 dead within the hour or whatnot, too. It just doesn't work anywhere else. There's an understanding in India, and it is amazing that this whole giant traffic circle with people crossing in the middle, and occasionally down this way there are cows walking across and whatnot. It works. You could see here the motorized tuk-tuks, the motorcycles, the bicycle delivering goods and whatnot. There's just everything there, and the system works. And so culturally, it's very, very interesting, something you could not duplicate here, but their system does work there, and I again found that fascinating. Yes.
I heard you refer to weed, and I should have given advice, I apologize if you talked about this already, but when you're going on these locations, are you generally going with a specific, I don't want to say company, but with a tour group, and it is for photography, or is it more?
Yes, do I go with specific groups or whatnot too, this is a compromise of marriage, which is, my wife likes to travel. She hates photography. She has no interest at all. I like photography. I don't care where we go as long as there's things to take pictures of as well. So we will go with groups that are the standard, tours just, and I usually wind up going off on my own or hanging behind or having to be found or that kind of thing as well. Wherever and that's why it's a compromise, because you could be sometimes at a striking place at noon, which is the worst time photographically, but that's when you're there. So it's just that's how we've traveled together. So we just go with any kind of tour that's out there. So this was with a group of there was 12 people on this. And so we were just lucky, they took us around, and I let the guide know, this is not a photographic tour, but I let the guide know in the beginning that I like to take pictures or whatnot. So they'll sometimes point out to me, there's a market there, or, you could do, and meet us back here at such and such a time, and I'll just do that. So that kind of works out. So yeah, this is not a photographic tour, and we'll go with, usually just anyone who happens to be touring in the area, okay? And this was just a scene that I liked, a bus just going by. You just always keep your eyes open for those just interesting shots. I was just down on the street, the bus was going by, and I saw the little girl and the woman looking out there too, and it just seemed like a good shot, and that's why, again, the continuous focus, because you just have to be able to shoot fast. Settings of this don't really matter. You don't have time to think of depth of field or this or that. You want to have your camera set up, so if something like that happens, you could just lift it up and shoot, and that's it. So I'm not at other times you'll think about your settings, but I'm not. I also think when we talk about sometimes the programmed mode, that forbidden mode that you should never be in as a real photographer, whatever you want to use, sometimes in things like this, it's the shot you're looking for. It's the subject as well, that type of thing too. So you just always, as a photographer, I think it always keeps you mentally agile too, because you're always looking for shots and you're always thinking how to do it. Then we moved on to Ragathon, which is their national park, which was interesting because that's where the tigers are. I think and what they say, there's like a zillion acres, but there are 3 tigers or 4 tigers on it, and they take you out in this Jeep. Now, I'm used to in a safari, they take you in a Jeep that's higher, that's this, and has bars on it and things too. This is a Jeep that's low and has nothing on it. And they tell you the odds are about, of all the groups that go out, about 30% chance of seeing a tiger. Well, it's better than nothing. But the odds are, they tell you ahead of time, they keep your expectation, that odds are you won't, because in all these things, there's just a few. So you're thrilled. If you even catch a glimpse of something, your cameras are just firing away. So I have out, of course, what lens do I have out? 7200? No. This is the 500. So the 500 fixed, PF lenses on there as well, and I'm ready too. So, okay, down a rank, so that's a little more south. Oh, but then there were birds, so I figured this was a bit of departure for me, but it's a bird, so I figured it was my obligation as a photographer to photograph it. because they had a reflection, and that looked good. And there was another bird. I'm just referring to these as birds because I don't know what they are. You guys know what they are, but it's a bird. It had a reflection. I liked the way it looked. I had my 500 on. What the heck? I asked before I took this picture. That's right. I asked that, the bird. Then, yes, we saw the tiger. Now, you notice the tiger is, and I use this as one of my teaching slides, is when people say, why would I ever use manual focus? The tiger, autofocus, there's a million of these branches here. Autofocus will pick up on every one of those things too. And I think the tiger does this as a protection to stay in the long grass, to protect him against photographers. So I was convinced because I'm waiting. Okay, get to the clearing. Well, he's not going to the clearing. And to try to focus, it's like I have for every one like this, there's 100 where the autofocus picked up on even a little thing on the eye. There's a blade and the autofocus would pick up on that. So I had to just find the manual focus because for all I this was it. This was going to be the picture I bring home. But then they got these walkie-talkies or something. There was the tiger. Oh, it was another bird. I was in seventh heaven there. That's a silhouette of a bird. But then they found the tiger was walking across one of the roads. So the Jeep, these guys are real. They want that tip. You want a tiger? We'll get you a tiger. But there's a limit. We pulled around. I get this. And then I realized two things. One is I've got a fixed lens. This is a 500. The tiger is walking towards us. This is the last shot, other than an eye. There's no zooming out or things or getting out and walking back. And the other thing is they didn't seem to be perturbed, but this tiger is like 50 feet away and there is nothing. There is just, you're in the Jeep at ground level too. And these are giant animals. And I just, so again, I got that. And I got that, and then I took the lens off, put the stuff back in the bag, and joined the rest of the 4 people who were on the Jeep, just telling the guy to just get out of here. That's it. I mean, because basically he's going, oh, don't worry, they don't usually is an operative word. They don't usually, or and I could real fast, if we have to go. I don't care if it's 1 in a million. That's not good. So that was, I got lucky. We saw the tiger. I got that. Fixed 500. That was it. Goodbye. And so we got. Then we got on the train. The trains there are interesting. You can see the turbine. They have, again, this was one of there are all types of trains. This was more of a first class train. Again, by their standards. And it was nice inside. It was like from an old Wes Anderson movie from the 1920s almost. Very, very quaint again. But again, comfortable and interesting. And it was advertised on this train. This train would have Wi-Fi, which it did. There is as you travel through the desert there and whatnot, every 20 miles there's a thing that has a Wi-Fi tower too. So you have Wi-Fi for 3 minutes every hour as you pass one of these things as well, too. So it's a bit of roughing it there, but this was before we got on the train. This is just some more scenes out on the street. Again, the temples, the interesting architecture, very, very colorful. Again, the saris I was just so impressed. And again, they just made for such interesting pictures in terms of the colors. The architecture, again, is just very, very interesting to me as well. And this looks like almost a problem of that I did too much in Photoshop, and it looks bigger on the top and the bottom. And that's what's fascinating. It is bigger on the top, wider on the top than it was down here, which is an unusual type of structure. I had not seen one like that. This was just a little girl at one of again, she was looking at me but didn't care. And sometimes that works as well too. So if the person looks at you, I continue to, as long as they don't mind too, I'll take 1 or 2 more, not make myself a pain in the neck, but get 1 or 2 more too. And sometimes the engaging thing of them looking at you works out well. So I like this one. And then watching me were the monkeys, which you'll find again in every city. This was just I think a smaller one, and the mother. And I don't know what they were watching. Girls in a school uniform, again, they had noticed me too, but sometimes that makes for a pleasing picture. And you can see just the varied forms of dress, from the young, the old, the traditional. Another one, you never know when you're just going down the streets. A little girl looking from up above, and I just love this shot, just got her looking down at me curiously. Again, with the 7200, you can get in fairly close like that. Yes. Yes.
Do you find that when you travel to another country that maybe people are more open to taking their photos than people in the U.S.?
When I travel other countries, are people more open to having their photo taken in the West? When people travel, I tell them, yes. And the reason is this. Is a little easier because if a lot of the time, two things. If you're in tourist areas, people are used to having, if you're in New York City and you lift up a camera, odds are you're going to get yelled at or whatnot and things too. If you're in a tourist area, in a lot of places overseas, they're just used to that because all the tourists are taking pictures, so it just doesn't bother them. You're like part of the background as well. But I found even if you're out not in the tourist areas, and I've been in a lot of places like that, if you approach it not as a tourist, but as a respectful thing, I talk about the distance, which is I don't go up to people, and take their picture, and I'm not doing it from, 500 yards away with a big telephoto, but I'll sometimes get within a, 50 feet or something, a respectful thing, and get a shot too, even though I could have walked up closer and gotten a tighter shot too. And that type of thing, people don't, even in non-tourist areas, people don't mind. It is the rare, in non-tourist areas, it is very unusual. People sometimes they'll let you know they don't want their picture taken, not by yelling it, they'll just put up their hand or they'll shake their head like that. And if you just immediately put down your camera and say, no problem and whatnot too, and walk away, there's no problem in that too. Like no harm, no foul. So it's usually not, it's usually easier, I found, overseas than it is, in the States here as well. Again, the blues and purple, the muted colors there, the bright yellows of some of these saris. Again, it is the brightness of the colors that I just found fascinating. Here are some of this is a combination freight train and passengers. Up front, there's some of the passenger cars too. And in the train station, these are people waiting for the train. And you could tell the difference in the class, and people travel differently. We were lucky enough to be on a little different train, but a lot of these modes of transportation for the people there, you will see that in certain parts of Mumbai and whatnot too. You'll see people on top of the trains and whatnot. You can get there for free, just get up on top as well. So again, different. Okay, then we go on to Udaipur, which is now, we left Rangatham and we'll head south again to Udaipur, a different city in the southern part of Rajasthan. And there, it's interesting because the people on the streets, whereas here you'll see the guy with the guitar and whatnot and things too, west, there, it's a completely different type of street scene. And again, these are people like that. They'll have a little bucket, to put money in and whatnot too. This is in the train station there as well. But again, it's different culturally than here in the West. Same thing, a lot of street vendors there. Old time just vendors. A lot of young people out in the streets, narrow streets again. You'll see these, again, open air shops and just people congregating, all kinds of dress as well. And again, most of the people outdoors. So much is outdoors, and that is just different than here sometimes. A very interesting woman at one of the temples, barefooted again, but this beautiful sari, the reds and the oranges just stand out so much. And she was just sitting there thinking. Another interesting young gentleman here. He was down the street. And again, this is one, again, I got down on my knee. He was we were the same level there. Getting down on the knee gets it more to that level. And you'll be surprised how much a difference that makes, again. This was another near collision. I took this from up above, too. This motorcycle veered. Actually, he went into this guy almost, too. He was going faster than it appears here and had to swerve to avoid hitting the cow. The cows don't flinch at all. They know they've got the right of way, and that's it. But you will just see this all over the place. By the way, we also saw cows on the interstate. So that is, and not necessarily in the slow lane. So when you see a cow they're used to looking out for this, but okay, I could see this and get used to this or whatnot. But on I-71, if there was a cow in the left, it just is something that you're not used to. And what surprises you is how no one else cares. They're not surprised at all. It's like you just go around them. There was it was getting hot. They are sharing a headscarf there. Yes. In Shutter, this one? In this one, yes. Most of the time, I am in shutter priority with about a 2/50th of a second, so that'll stop most action. I have an ISO 400, which will give me a decent f-stop, too, and the ISO also is auto ISO, it'll float if it has to. But on that, I'm ready to shoot in most things, only if I'm concerned about depth of field. If I say, I'd like a higher depth of field, well, I switch to aperture priority. So most of the time, I'm in shutter priority. If there's a group of 4 people and they're different depths, and I say, I'd like to get them all in focus, I'll switch to aperture priority f16, or the guy with his hands. But most of the time, I'm in shutter priority just for that reason, too. And manual, I would be going to do those special shots like from the moving car. Does that answer that? Yep. And this is one, again, I switched over to aperture priority down to f16 to get things from as much as I could, the hand, the ring, stirring the dyes, everything in focus here. Shot just on a regular at f5, 6, or 4 or something like that, your depth of field this close is going to be so narrow that unless that's the effect you're going for. So I purposely switch over to aperture priority for this. And again, auto ISO, I don't really care what the ISO is as well. So this is, again, a lot of the dyes they use for their painting are handmade. They mix the dyes themselves with a mortar and pestle here until the color is just right. There's just at the railway station again, just a family with the daughter just sleeping away there. And kids. Again, doesn't matter if they see you sometimes. Sometimes kids are even though they're, making it for the camera there too, they're cute kids. You could see this is the 3-tier sleepers in the back. That's what most of the people there use. But again, some kids and this picture happened to work even though they were all looking at me. And again, an escalator, which we have in all of our stores here or whatnot, but the beautiful sight again. I just like the way her bright red sari, the shadows, and it made the red shadow on both sides as well as she goes down. Again, I was just fascinated by the colors. And this is the train station. This was our train here. All the trains just pull in. They're all electric. Things are overhead usually. I take that back. Most of them are electric. There are some diesel there. These are the electric ones. Now we move west from Udaipur to Jaisalmer by the Pakistani border. So here they wanted to take us out into the desert. So Jaisalmer is the main town. There's more of a Muslim population here because we're closer to Pakistan. And then we went out into this area here, so we were about a few miles from the border. That made me a little nervous too. I cannot read Hindi, but I recognized the thing for Pakistan. It was written in almost English-like too, and you know, km is kilometers, and that number kept getting less and less, with the driver just saying, almost there, and that is. Went on, you could see there was a change in dress now. Now we're more towards the Muslim area. That's a camel in the background too. So this is a part now where we're out more towards the desert. And you can see the traditional headgear there, the shalwar kameez, camel. And this was my one, I took a risk on this. Because this is not like, people think camels are like horse hooves. Imagine a horse in the desert. The desert, you know, walking on the beach, your feet just sink in. A horse weighs a lot. How could a horse walk? Because his feet would keep sinking in. Well, a camel's just as big as a horse. And the thing is, they don't have hoofs, they have sponges. This thing is all spongy-like. So it's easy for them to walk on the sand without sinking in. This is all like spongy material, no hoofs. And again, I was more nervous about this than the Cobra shot. Camels are mean. This is more of a Muslim area. You could see the head covering. These are women working, they're breaking rocks. This is all done manually. This is some street construction. And these women were breaking rocks and then loading them onto vehicles to be taken away too. So even the temperature now is in the upper 90s too. Notice the complete headscarves. Again, this is just some of the housing on the side of one of the rivers. Again, advantage of your 7200 is you can get some of the little kids on the, now they're up there. They were up there too, but you have enough reach, and then you crop a little too, that with today's cameras, you can get a really good picture of some of these things as well. Again, I love this one. This is the advantage of auto ISO. This just little kid was on the street, just sitting, relaxing there too. Bright white teeth there as well. I loved his grin. The lighting conditions when you travel you have no control over. A lot of times the lighting is wrong. People are in direct sunlight. There are shadows on them. You have tremendously bright areas and then shadow areas again. And plus, you're not having time to think. Sometimes you want to get one in the bag and quickly get the shot. So this is shutter priority too, but with auto ISO, it took into account, again, the shade, because the shot before this was in bright sunlight, and all of a sudden shooting here, you went from an ISO, down low to ISO up maybe 2000 or something too, and you don't have to worry about that then. So that's why I use the auto ISO here, because that expression just exists. I took a bunch of ones real quickly, but that expression exists for that just one split second too. So you get what you can, and sometimes you get lucky like this too. The contrast, the women, and they have a young child there too. The water just coming out of the pipe here that people use sometimes for drinking water or for washing water. It's an alley that they were working on. You could see it's an old arts and crafts store in there, and there were a lot of things, the contradictory things in this image just kind of caught me there as well. Cute little girl as well in the shadows there. I just loved her dress and the way she looked. Again, advantage of auto ISO. You're shooting from sun to just deep shadows, and the camera will take care of that. Again, the street performers are not like here with the guitars and whatnot. They are just all types of things, but street performers nonetheless. Very interesting type of characters as well. For street performers, I would always put something in there for them. That way they don't, because basically they are out there trying to make a living. You're getting something from them, which is the picture. It's their image in a sense. Since they're doing this for money, it's only fair. So you put a little, I do that in the States too. You put it in, and it's fine with them. You can take all the pictures you want. So I always do that with street performers, and because one, it's the right thing to do, and two, it's usually no problem then. You get some nice shots, but you notice Very difficult. You're taking shots at the worst time of day. This is bright sunlight, noon sun overhead. I had to work a lot on this. The eyes have tremendous shadows because the sun's right above, blown out faces there. But you have, and again, he's wearing white, but you have no choice. Unlike studio work or environmental portraiture, where you could position your person over in the shade or whatnot, you take what you can here and work on it afterwards. And that's the fun part, but you're at the mercy sometimes of just what's out there. Light was a little better here, but I just found the faces very, very interesting there as well. A woman just thinking, sitting on the top of the steps there too. I was on the bottom part of the steps, and she was just in her own thoughts. So even though I wasn't that far away, she didn't seem to look up at all. And again, got down on her knees, so I get this shot looking up. Tremendous colors then in India. And this I just shot just to show the bright colors there. Another cell phone. You can see the traditional dress, the handlebar mustache, the turban, usually indicative of the Sikhs there as well. And this was an outdoor shop as well. This again, I use this for a shot I teach in class. I just like the way this guy looked here. And this was another shot, by the way, going on a car. We were going down the street. So this was one of those just drive-bys, pointing the camera and hoping it got something around him. But just the time we went by, there was another person here, a tourist, and their head took up this part and over here. Again, nothing you could done. Your car's moving, you can't do. Yeah, Brian knows where I'm going with this. But it's just that I like the way he looked. You either have nothing, you have a tourist head in the shot too. You couldn't wait till you're gone, you're in a car. Or with the post-processing nowadays, the head that was here is taken out, the bowl, the counter, everything is recreated, and you have the shot that you were looking for, which is really, that was what's in your mind eye. This is art in a sense. This is the image you were trying to make. You had no control over the other, but we have the tools now to get rid of that. Again, colorful street, out on the street. We saw the weavers in the bright colors. These are the vegetable sellers, all again on the street. So, very interesting. A bunch of the old sewing machines, and they will do their mending or something right out on the street. So this is a tailor shop, but again, as opposed to going inside and whatnot and seeing the vendors there, it's all out on the street. And again, I found that very, very interesting, very photogenic. Again, a little kid on this, you find little kids everywhere. And sometimes sometimes they'll just run away like that. Other times they're really photogenic too. But again, I'm always careful. And this is again down and trying to get lower than them. And it just gives that different look. Had I been doing this standing up, it would be that typical thing. The kid would look shorter, and it's the standard view you see. So sometimes that can make a difference as well. The streets are narrow there. Tractor delivering a whole, just pulling this dump truck with their stuff. But again, by the way, this is a two-way road. So that is just, you just kind of make do. If two tractors meet, they work it out. And if there's a cow in the middle, I have no idea what the rules are there. And again, this was in a different city, but again, you'll see these priests sometimes. Again, I was being blessed here too. He's not waving to me as well. Another priest was in the area. Again, I just found them, just their look was fascinating. A weaver out on the streets. Again, giant bags of grain in the background, some old artwork. Very, very colorful, very, just tremendous expressions. Then we went out. That was the city of Jaisalmer. As we moved out in the desert, we passed this camp. This was like a nomad's camp. These are people who just live out in the desert in handmade structures. And what's interesting, the kids, these are just things where they'll store some grain or whatnot. They'll just make this. These kids were having the time of their life. They were all happy. They were having fun. It's just that you don't need the PlayStation and whatnot and things like that as well. They were just doing kid stuff and having a good time. You could see the living structures back here. You could see actually wind turbines in the back, which they have a lot of there. But again, very, very friendly. We stopped in this little, actually pulled over and met the people there and whatnot, and I was able to photograph them too. So this was just a fortuitous stop in this little group on the sides. Again, the kids there, you could see these structures. That's the living quarters there as well, and there were just tents all over. But everyone was very happy. Whenever we do things like this and are coming in unannounced and whatnot too, we always make sure we leave something for the town, the village, the people, that type of thing. It's that same type of thing. This isn't like going to the zoo and, oh, look at this and pose for me or whatnot. They are nice enough to give us the hospitality, and so we try to give something in return. I think that just goes a long way. Again, it's the right thing to do. Some of the kids there you could see from playing in the dust and dirt there as well. And they were great kids. And again, they were just having a lot of fun. You could see them there. And again, the little just makeshift huts around that they had there. This is a garage for the camels. And you have a little vegetation. You're out in the desert. And so that's where you park your camels. This is a 2-camel garage. You've got in there, both of them, the camels will sit. That's the only shade you could get there. And those are 2 of the tenders there for the camels. And again, traditional turban for this area too. This is just one of the men of the village, just passing time in the shade there as well. With the country most of the time in 90 degrees at this part of the mid-belt of India, out in the desert, it gets very, very hot. At sunset, this was one of the camel caravans that were going by. We were lucky enough to shoot there that night, and it just, as the sun went down, this just made an interesting type picture. And again, this was one, and I'm most proud of this one. This was in that golden hour. The sun is real low. You have the long shadows, and they were going, I don't know where they were coming back from or going to, but she was trailing behind, and just her dress is just beautiful. It must have been some function. The camel is all decorated up here. But again, just getting down low and shooting up like this. This was another woman just walking back from whatever function this was. Just walking across. There's no roads, no sidewalks. There's just desert too. And so again, very, very interesting, the contrast of that and the dress against just the desert. Then we started to trek back. We go to Jodhpur, which is a very, very interesting city. So from Jaisalmer, we went to Jodhpur. Jodhpur is known as the Blue City. Now, we'll go into why. So in Jodhpur, again, there were these interesting kids, and a lot of times kids don't mind having their pictures taken at all, and you just get some of these these are kids playing on top of this wall, and they were more than happy just to smile and whatnot, so I really just liked that. On the street, again, another street musician, typical turban of this area. Handlebar mustache. I thought this individual was good. Phones, again, are ubiquitous. You'll notice the high collar, which is another typical dress in this area. This was, again, part of the golden hour, too. That's the orange light. I just like the way it gave that orange tint there, the face, the clothes. And again, this one worked with him looking, directly at me. Now, in Jodhpur, from the days of the Maharajas, they would build these huge forts. And this is a huge fort in Jodhpur, and it overlooks the old city. The old city is the one that's painted blue. And that's the Blue City. Now, I know the question. Why is it blue? Seems pretty straightforward. It's called the Blue City. It's been this way for half a millennia, so someone should know. But it depends who you ask. And I did this just to test it out. I'd ask people on the street, there are 4 answers that you'll get. either one, the Lord Shiva is associated with the color blue, and divinity and royalty. So back then, they painted these blue. The other is the caste system. It was the color of the Brahmin. So the Brahmin painted their houses blue to differentiate them so people would know that they are not the lower caste, they are Brahmin. But there's a whole other group of people that'll tell you, no, this is because it's a cooling effect. It's real hot there, and blue really reflects well and whatnot and keeps things cool, and that's why it was painted blue. And then there is not one person, but a whole group that'll tell you, obviously, this has nothing to do with those. This was for the termites, that these houses are all wood, and the blue paint has copper sulfate and limestone in it, and copper sulfate kills the termites. So it's interesting, you'd think after 800 years they would have figured out at least united front to tell us, the tourists. I even went to Wikipedia, and it gave me those 14. But around there, I would ask shopkeepers and things too, and you would get varied answers. So it's interesting. So that is the Blue City, and this is, again, these houses have been around since the 1600s, I think, as well. And they are, some of them wood, some of them just mortar, again, and a lot of them painted blue. And you'll see just these bright blues. And here is, you're looking from the top of the fort. This is the edge of the fort. And this is the old city. And you can see the more modern city is out there. So the old city surrounds the fort. That's the Blue City. Again, by hand, the dress is intricate, colorful, but yet this is a long stairway. This is about 2 stories worth of stairs up. And this is a hand mop with the bucket down below. And she would go down, wet the mop, come up, do the steps, and just do this. And I was very, very much impressed. I mean, this is how people, a lot of people there make a living too. And you just see a lot of this, and you realize, again, not only how fortunate we are here, but again, how much of the labor is manual there as well. Little kid looking down from up above. Again, you can get some night candid sometimes. Again, that's why, again, I know I keep going back to the 70 to 200. A lot of people in street photography like to use a 35 or 50 millimeter lens. But once you're close or within a certain distance too, then people will just, even if they don't mind it, they'll look at you. And then you lose the spontaneous thing of just, this is how they were before I got there as well. And you could see just the pensive look. It's the look that I'm trying to get. Very, very colorful in some of the Muslim areas. These are some of the prayer rooms. Oh, this is just another, this is the end of the fortress here too, and more of the Blue City. And you could see the newer Jodhpur in back. This is the old city here. And again, as the light comes through, these are some of you can see the light just reflecting down or transmitting down on some of the prayer stalls there as well. Very colorful. I love sometimes you have the bright colors and also you have the muted colors. Just the muted browns of the sandstone, the muted colors up here, the motorcycle. Again, some of these are like pastel almost. Then you have some of the real colorful characters as well. Now that's a handlebar mustache. And this work, he was going up the stairs and turned to me like that, and it's an interesting character. I got a few of him, and he was another one. Again, that very, very interesting type of things that you're able to get a shot of. But then you could see again, this was a little shop up here as well. And this is a close-up of one of the blue buildings in the Blue City. Narrow roads throughout the city as well. Bright colors, as well as a lot of the structures are that typical blue of Jodhpur. Again, blue on the sides. You see blue in the distance, narrow alleyways. Everything is narrow there. Oh, this was a group up there too. White balance goes out the roof here too. There's nothing you could because there's so much blue, they are actually tinted blue. Because the light is coming off this, hitting off this, and on them, it's like you had a blue filter. They were actually almost blue in the original picture. And I had to desaturate the blue out of them, because again, it looks strange. But again, that's just a product of the light, at the bright light, reflecting off everything that's blue around and onto them. So that was challenging. But again, I like the way they were stacked up there, just sitting, talking on the stoops. But then, up in this garden way too, someone heard the commotion and came by to see. Now at this, first I thought he was on supplemental oxygen, because that would look like an O2 thing, but he's not there. But just this interesting guy came out too and looked down below to see what was going on. So again, it's nice there to, you never know what you're going to get. You've got your 7200 on, you're at this picture here, and all of a sudden up there, that appears, and you don't know if he's going to go away in a second too, so you grab that shot then too. Then he noticed you. That's what he's had this wrap around there too, with this little thing holding it up, I guess. And he was just an interesting character too. So again, in the Blue City, you never know what you're going to see. Again, the saris, the dress, the motorcycles. I like this with the Blue City, the paintings on the wall. I like the woman there, which blended right into these two women. So your eyes there are constantly going, looking for these kind of things. This is the inside of one of the motorized tuk-tuks too. Not very much. There's a key and a pedal, and that's it. And that's what you see out the windshield, and you just maneuver. This was another, we got on one of these as well. And again, these were up around the 20-mile-an-hour range too. So I tried again the shooting without looking through. That's one. That again that is not even looking at the back of the camera. That's just kind of holding it like down at your waist level up here and pointing it to where you think. And as you go by, just clicking it and hoping those settings capture the depth of field. Now, if I had hit back here, I doubt there would be enough depth of field to get that. That happens sometimes. But if you get a 60% keeper rate, boy, that's pictures you just can't do otherwise. So again, I was amazed how sharp and everything this does, just using that trick, which you can do with any camera. And it just expands the amount of pictures you're able to get. This also is from the moving vehicle. Again, so this is about 20 miles an hour down the street, shooting from the hip. This also, same way. You can see a little distortion because it's I'm using the 24 millimeter. But again, whether it got her or just a little bit on either side, I was close enough to where the depth of field, she's nice and sharp all the way through. So I really like it because there are things that you pass when you're on the road that are interesting shots, but you're moving pretty fast, so you would not be able to get otherwise. This was another one. This is from the moving vehicle. As we went by, got her. So these are shops as you're passing. Another one, too. And this was more intricate. It had to hit him somewhere on here, because I think that's a little too far away in the back to get depth of field in, so sometimes you get lucky. This was another one. This was one after we were off now. I tried the same technique then while we were walking to see if I could do this, holding with the same settings, holding the camera just down at my side, looking straight ahead, and just pushing the button as I went. So you're not lifting the camera up like you're taking a picture. That's why it's this little angle like that, and it's a little from down below. That's just taken at my hip, shooting upwards, and it got them, and you got a good shot there. So now I was just experimenting to see if this technique would work, because that expands it out to a whole other thing. As if, gee, I'd like to get a picture of that, but that's a little bit seedy, I don't know. You could do this now. This was another one from down at the hip. And again, this was from the hip as well. That's why the little off angle and from down below. But again, I was experimenting more at this point, but the depth of field got both of them in. So again, I think this is another good part of your armamentarium to have in there. This was another one. too, an interesting guy by one of these open-air shots. Then I was back to, this is a regular one, too. But again, I just like the subject matter. Again, one of these outdoor tailors. Old school, right out on the street, just doing tailor work. This is the business there. You're still in the western part there, more of a Muslim area. So you'll see a lot of the head coverings like that with very little showing. And I thought the contrast of the modern dress and the motor scooter, but yet the head covering was just an interesting combination. Here, just out on the streets, the open air markets again. This was a phone shop. Again, everything outdoors. You just kind of lay your thing out, your wares there. Another open air, just selling things on the street. Again, everything very, very colorful. Very little, if any, graffiti there. I didn't see any my whole time. A lot of artwork on the walls, but no graffiti. Interesting, too, everything travels by motorcycle there a lot, even with the long saris. And you'll fit, it's not unusual to see 4 on a motorcycle, mother, father, and the 2 kids. Now, these shots here that we're going to see now are taken from an automobile on a 4-lane road. So we were doing 30 or 40 miles an hour now. So this is a regular automobile I'm in the back seat with the window open. So trying the same technique. And there were these schoolgirls walking home, and I just liked the way they were dressed, but we were just zooming down the street. So this is using that same technique then, and you could see, it's nice. You see that the headgear there. This is another one. We're going down the road too. This is just pointing it out the window. Some of them, even with a single target like this, which I just thought was interesting. This is the school uniform they have on here. That's what the blue is there as well. Again, out the window. This is another one from out the window. You know, again, they were all coming home from school. And as we passed them all, I wanted to just get a bunch of them because I just liked the dress. I liked the way they looked. So I just kept firing out the window. Here again. Enough to, and your target is going to be this whole area, which is a big area. And if you have your camera now, you could kind of point it in that general direction. And if you hit anything air, the depth of field at f/16 at a 24 millimeter is going to take them all in. So it actually does work, like I said, 60% of the time. But then you want to avoid the penal room, which is where if things go bad, you wind up. Don't ask me. I don't know what it is. So that I know everyone's waiting for, what is that? What do you use it for? I don't know. This is one of the times I wandered off of my own, so there was no guide around or anything else like that. I just thought it was interesting. And we're at the railway station again. Again, these are old-time railway stations. They post the staff wages, date of payment. Just interesting. Now we went to Bakhtor. I had no control over this. It was part of the stop they were stopping in, and this is the compromise too. And the guy was all excited. We're going to stop at a bird sanctuary. A bird sanctuary? What about people? But they're birds. They're unusual. So I figured, what the heck? So we went over now, so we're heading back. So we stopped at Bakhtor because they wanted, and everyone else in the group was excited. They'd see birds. So I saw a bird with a big beak that I got there as well. Someone lost a parrot, and so I saw that. So I had my 500 millimeter on. So again, I got the parrot. Then I got real close to the parrots. Again, so your depth of field is real narrow with that because already this parrot is out of the depth of field. But they're parrots. Then I started to get a little artsy. This was a bigger bird with a curved beak. And this is a white bird with long legs. Then I got this one was nice because of the white in the background. It almost made an S curve like that too. So this one I liked, but still not like a person though. And again, I just liked that one too. And this was a bird with a long neck. That's white too. So I apologize for these, but we stopped there. I have something to put up. But then they also said there's a little town next to it. So I asked them, while you're looking at the rest of the birds, could I walk through the little town? You know, no one ever asked that. Fine. And so after doing, oh, and there are cows. There's always cows. And then there's this funny bird who had legs that were as long as the bird almost, and a blue bill and a red bill or something too. So I took his picture. So then I started walking in the town. So enough with the birds. Again, very interesting, the shawl. You'll see the shalwar kameez again, which is worn a lot over there. The muted colors. Very interesting. Little kid with the sweater on. Again, mother in the traditional sari, bare midriff, too. Little kid just staring out, old structure. They were coming back from school. It's usually the school dress is this bluish type uniform, and I love them holding hands, just walking down this little alley like that. So it doesn't always have to be from the front. These again, this woman was walking out, and I just like with her son, and it was from this is a house, there was no door here, it's just a curtain that comes. And I'll put in a plug. Brian, you don't have to listen to this part. I just did this to see what would happen. This was a shot I took. I only had this one picture because afterwards they turned and went back in and whatnot too. There was, see these cables or electrical cable, there was one that was twice this thickness, and it went across and it got half of her face, including the eyes and the nose, and that was gone. And so basically that was not a usable picture. And for just pure curiosity, I wanted to see. Usually faces are impossible. And to see what it did. And what it was able to do, which was quite amazing, is not to put a generic face, but it put the same skin color, it put the same nationality. It recognized that it was an Indian type person and put that type of skin color and face there too, to where I think there was one more after she turned around where I did have her face, but it was not anything photogenic or whatnot, and that is really, really close. Usually in the old days, it would just put a generic face on, something that would look really ridiculous, but this pretty much, it'll recreate almost the race and the whatnot, ethnicity too, but it made a picture that was totally unused. Not that this is the most artsy picture in the world, but I like the picture. It was totally unusable because her face was obscured by the cable. And it's now that one you have in your portfolio. So I say that just as not as a crutch. Again, you would never do this in photojournalism, but I am not saying this is art to me, and this is my art. Again, everything by hand. Yes.
On the last photo where you said they didn't have a door,
Yes.
that was sort of photography related, but do they have problems with insects and bugs? To where even you walk around taking pictures, you were in your face?
No, the question was, there a problem with insects and bugs with no door there too? That could be related to time of year, whatnot. I didn't hear there was any particular insect problems like you would have in a rainy part of like Southeast Asia, where bugs are a big problem, or maybe southern India, which is more tropical. But this part of India, which was kind of temperate and whatnot, I had not heard of any. We didn't experience any too. So I don't think it's a big problem there, as it might be in other parts of India as well. So they are, again, just a lot of work by hand. They were doing some landscaping work, and all the transporting down the block to the truck is all done by hand. There are groups of these laborers just carrying this down. Again, the bright colors. You see the swastika there, the peace symbol. Notice again, it's flat like that. Again, you'll see that a lot. Southeast Asia, too. And there are these lots of cows around. A lot of people keep cows. That's a little washing basin there. I thought this was interesting because in this area, it's very, very photogenic. I love the way that her dress, it's this muted color here against the muted color, again, almost pastel. The ground, the muted color, and this red is not even a bright red. It's muted, and her scarf is muted. So I just like the color palette of this picture. And she was one, she saw me taking her picture, and it was one of those nice smiles that really just worked. And then she had her little kid there, and this one just worked tremendously, the way her scarf covered up her face. I mean, in a portrait studio, you'd be doing this to get it to look like that. And this was just fortuitous that everything looked right. So I just, from the color palette to just the way they looked, you just keep shooting. Ooh, I never thought of that. Is she taking a picture of me with a cell phone? Yeah, it comes. You're right. Here I am, so smart. You know, you take it from the hip, they'll never notice. Yeah, come to think of it. So, which she is probably giving a presentation now on tourists, and showing all the stupid tourists. So I'm on some screen somewhere. Good pickup. Again, just interesting going down the block. And again, the school garb that they wear, a lot of school uniforms. I just like the kids there. And this variation, if you traveled, you've seen this variation all over the world. This is the Universal Weather Report. Boggs Weatherstone. In Alaska, they have a string and whatnot. And you'll see, you know, if it's wet, if the stone is dry and hot, it's sunny. If the stone is wet, it's raining. If it's white, it's snowing. If the stone is shaking, it's an earthquake. If you can't see the stone, it's foggy. If there is no stone, there's a hurricane. Now, roti is a form of bread there. If the stone has turned to roti, it's God's miracle as well. But I've seen all over the world, in various places, variations on this kind of thing as well. So I just had to throw that in. Again, this was, as we went to another part of the city, I tried again the shooting from the hip thing, which is why these are down lower from that angle. And you could see that this works fairly well. You can get some just nice pictures. Again, shalwar kameez, very, very common. This was, again, shooting from the hip. As I went by, the person noticed me, but I'm not lifting the camera. The camera is down below, and I'm just pressing it. And it's in silent mode, so it doesn't even make a shutter sound as well. This was just an interesting shot of we were on one of the buses, too, of I just thought this man was interesting. Typical dress. Again, you just see there are a lot of people on the streets. Typical turban there, shalwar kameez. The architecture there sometimes is breathtaking. This is all wood. This is wood railings. These are wood carvings. Everything here is just wood girders too. Just handiwork done in the 17 and 1800s. Again, the bright colors. Again, modern dress. A lot of these just older temples, again. Not many people around this part of town. A shot of one of the young kids dressed in bright red just through the arches. I got down low on this. This was again with the 200. But from enough where you didn't see on the first shot, I just got down a little lower and just like that shot of him, his skin being more brownish, blending in almost with the brown muted colors behind. This was just another street scene. Some people again, family, the typical dress there as well, the ubiquitous phone. The instructions that explain just what we were seeing, and now you know why I don't have as many answers as I should. And there was no English part of this as well. You could see, again, a lot of the labor. This was a little quarry area, too. These are workmen here taking a break. You could see the woman, head draped, carrying things on her head. Again, a lot of the work is manual there. This is not 5 people on a bike, which is what I first thought. It's actually 2. I think there's 2 motorcycles here. I think it's he, the woman, and the girl, and this is he, the little boy, and the man. So there's 6 people here. So this looks like, but again, very common to see 3, not unusual to see 4 people on a cycle. Yeah.
Did you ever feel unsafe anywhere? Did you see any police?
Actually, did I ever feel unsafe or to see any police? With 1.4 billion people, that's a very interesting question. And the answer is no. I rarely saw a policeman, and I never really felt in these towns unsafe. Now, there are parts of the bigger cities like Delhi, in Old Delhi or whatnot, at nighttime you kind of don't want to be. That's the same as anywhere else. But the daytime, in a lot of these places, no. And I think it's a different culture too. It's just, the crime might be different kind of crime, but I never felt, as I do in some other places, unsafe. And there was not really, whereas in other places you'll see a lot of police, you'll see military, things like that. I can't even remember. There's been no police in any of these shots. I don't even remember seeing anyone, too. So very, very safe as we traveled all the way around, too. So there's not a problem. Yeah. Do I feel if I what? Do I feel if I get a disease? I'd better not with all the shots you need to go there. When you go to India, you're taking malaria pills. That's part of the recommendation, that you're taking prophylaxis malaria pills, and you get your hepatitis A and B shots, and you get in some places, because we were out a little more distance, you have to get cholera and things too, which is a big needle as well. They also have pills nowadays, and for some reason, they gave me this big shot, and they gave my wife the pills. And I don't know why that. But in any case, if you were there are parts that you travel. If you were in the real rural areas, there's rabies and other things there are things that you could pick up, and more cholera. But in the regular cities, there is no more illness. And a lot of these things, like the malaria and the cholera things too, that you get before traveling, are preventative. But it's not this is less of a problem than there is when you travel to other places too, where it's more endemic. Yeah. Was it always bottled water? This varies by country. It's the first thing when you touch down you see. In some countries, yes, and India was one of them, where we used bottled water for everything. Tap water was not drinkable or advisable there as well. So brushing teeth, everything else like that is bottled water. You have to differentiate, and same thing as when we were in Israel, that's all water from the tap. As soon as you cross over into Jordan, even in Amman, the main city, it's bottled water only too. Now, some of this is due to in some countries, it is not safe. There is just disease in the water. Others, it's like the Mexican phenomenon, where you're not used to the biome, their type of thing, where they drink it and they're fine, you drink it and you get the Montezuma's revenge kind of thing too. But India is one of those places too. We were advised bottled water all over. Yeah.
Did you experience any kind of nightlife at all?
Any kind of nightlife?
Yeah, we see the roads are crowded during the day and everything happens. What happens at night?
At night, the ISO goes way up, so I'm not interested, and I'm usually on my laptop downloading things too. No, so the answer is there's probably a good nightlife there too, but the serious answer is no, I actually didn't go out at night. When we came in and, after dinner, you're exhausted, and I'd want to download my stuff, get it on the laptop, those type of things too. So we actually did not go out any of the nights, so I don't know that. Sure, yeah. Camera strap and batteries too. I had the standard camera strap that comes with the camera. I take all my lenses with me. My wife doesn't carry everything. You want it, you take it. That's the standard rule too. So I use when I switched from a camera bag, which gave me shoulder problems and neck problems, to the backpacks they have. I have a think tank one, but there's lots of ones out there. A huge difference, because I carry all my gear, and with a good backpack, it really doesn't bother you at all. So I have the lenses and everything in the backpack, and the camera I keep always with the 70 to 200 around not my neck. That's important, around my shoulder. If you carry the camera around your neck, it hurts your neck. All of that goes onto the neck. If you carry it, the shoulder around like that, it's going into your shoulder so you don't get neck pain, so it's easier to do. And the other is, when you have it around your neck, it's in the front of you too, which is awkward and bumps and go there too. When it's around on your side like this, it just sits on the side here, which is kind of easy access and out of the way. We were with other photographers. The National Geographic photographer that we were with had one of those packs, I know they have, that quick, you can get all your stuff, it's in the front. And so there are lots of variations, but I use the strap that comes with the camera, and I just have my equipment in the backpack and the camera just over my, around the neck, shoulder kind of thing. So that's how I always have done it, and it seems to work. So this is our 6-person motorcycle. I should really just take that middle wheel out with some AI, that's right, and try to tell people. No, I wouldn't do that. Now on to, we'll finish up with Agra. And Agra we all know, because that's the Taj Mahal. Now the Taj Mahal I knew was going to be, that was the challenge. And the challenge is why? That's because how many pictures have you seen of the Taj Mahal? 1 million, 2 million, it's the same. Everyone's seen it. And so I know I could take a picture and it would be exposed right or whatnot, but how could I get a picture that was different? And that is really, really, really hard. And we went, and with the National Geographic photographer that we were with was good enough. He had some connections, and we went back, and he knew I wanted to photograph that, so we managed to go sunrise the first day to get it before there were people around and as the sun was coming up. And then the Taj Mahal is located on the Yamuna River. So there is only it is on the bank of the river, so you only see 3 sides of it. The other side is facing the river, and it's private property on the other side. It's kind of like half jungle. But there's a tree farm that was there, and he knew the guy and got us for the next day. We were able at sunrise to go across on the other side of the Yamuna River and photograph it that way too. So I had ample opportunity, but it is still hard. I mean, the professional photographers I have great respect for, because it's not their equipment's any better, they have special access, but they get these shots you see in the magazine of the Taj Mahal or whatnot too, that you say, oh wow, it takes your breath away. It's not that you couldn't have done the same thing, you just never thought of that. So that was I considered my challenge on this. So this was my work day again. So we went there. So now we're finishing up the Bach tour and the birds up to Agra with the Taj Mahal. And when you get there at dawn, the Taj Mahal sits out by the river. And there is a giant structure here, which is the entrance to that. All the people have to go through here because it's a walled compound. So this is where all the people go through. When you see the Taj Mahal, which is over here, you'll see it. You usually see 3 buildings around it. One building is this, which is the entrance. The other building is a mosque. And what's interesting, the Taj Mahal, this was built in 1631, and as you know, it is a sanctuary. This is where the Maharaja buried his wife. So you have the entranceway is one building, the mosque is the second building, and the third building is a dummy building. It was built architecturally only to give symmetry. In other words, it doesn't have a function. It's just that this would look stupid with a building, and on 3 sides you have 2 buildings and nothing on this side. So to give it symmetry, this third building is there, which they store things in, but it doesn't do anything. So I thought that was just very interesting. So in the morning you go, and this was and we were instructed too, it is the only time in 20 years of traveling, and this had to be negotiated too, that my wife carried a piece of equipment for me. Because as was explained to us, is the line, because everyone has to go through a magnetometer and then x-ray and then a blood test, and, whatever it is, it's a huge line. But if you only have one camera, then you go through the fast line. If you have anything more than one camera, that too. So I was taking a that day I went in with the one camera and the one lens. And if I carried both of those, I'd be in the big line. So we convinced my wife to carry the lens too, which made us one apiece. We got to go through the short line too. So that is my only memorable time of that. So I was relaxing for 10 minutes. But you get through there and it's interesting. Yes, this is as the sun rises and you're on the Muna River. And again, the fog is up and the mist and the sun is coming up and all the people here who are just coming in are trying to get pictures of the phone. You could see how the phone lights it up well too. And I just like this shot of the people against the Taj Mahal as the mist is over there. So this is the Taj Mahal, the 4 minarets around it. The river is on the other side. We've come through now. So this is as people are starting to come through. There's many little spots you could stand there. And this is it as the sun comes up too. And you notice this is as the sun comes up, this is one of the first ones I took as I got in there. So this is more towards as the sun rises. But you see, this is the only time you'll see the Taj Mahal with no people because I'm at the head of the line because my wife carried the lens. So we've gotten there, we're at the head of the line, so we got in, and even though this is a shot that should look like this, in post-processing, made it so that it was lighter, so it looks like that. But this was because I wanted to look at it. But yeah, it's the only time you'll see the Taj Mahal, unless you take a 10 neutral density filter and do a 5-minute exposure to get rid of all the people, and those kind of things as well. But yeah, so this was unusual, the Taj Mahal without people, because this is open 7 days a week, so you never see it like this. This is just one of the that's the mosque that was off to one side. This is solid white marble. It is a huge amount of marble, and as you're close to the structure, you see every single inch of this thing. It is huge, and it is marble. I thought this was interesting. The woman there, again, just dwarfed by the huge marble structure close up of the Taj, which is right there. And there were the women below. Again, the women with the structure of the Taj. I'm just trying to get it a bit different there. One of the Muslim women just walking through. Yes? The white balance? Actually, no. The camera auto white balance did a decent job on this. The biggest problem I had was with 1 or 2 times in shade or cloudiness where it made it a little bit bluish, which I think it could have happened anywhere, or those people that were in the blue city, the blue light was reflecting on them and they were blue, which isn't really a white balance problem too. But otherwise, all of this was handled with the camera auto white balance, and I didn't really have to do any white balance correction on hardly any of these. So the camera did a good job. There again, these are ones we went through. You're able to walk all through this around, but what's amazing is just the magnificent way. Here is a reflection of the Taj within the structure. Again, trying to just get it a little bit a different way. The water was still enough here, again, to get that. Again, I like this woman. This woman was getting a picture of the Taj, and I just loved her reflection in the water. So I'm looking not at the Taj, but you're also looking at the people at this point. My favorite. Don't ask me. I don't know, but I loved her. I love the colors. I love that, and she was just there. Actually, when you're walking on the upper floors of the Taj, other than the ground level, they give you these to put on. So that's what those are for. And she still, even though we're down at the regular level now, she still has hers on. But I just loved the way she looked. I hope she stood there long enough for me to get a shot off, and that no people would walk by or whatnot as well. So I got down on my knee, and I just thought she was very interesting. I don't know anything else about her. Again, you see the little shoes there, and just everything is marble there. A little wood door. and a kid just off to the side. This is on the back of the Taj. This is just a kid on his phone. The Yamuna River is down there. So this is the back of the Taj. So this is just all that undeveloped, private land back there. That's nothing. Or we'll go the next day, and the river is down below. And I just liked him. You could see they make you wear those up there. Everything marble. I just love this. Little kids can fall asleep. They're not impressed by anything. Put the boots on, fall asleep on your knees. Got down, again, getting down on, lower than my knee for this one as well. There's another shot. As the light changed throughout the day, this is, again, morning light. This is the eastern part, so it's lit up more there. There's a little still mist in the morning or fog, which is why you'll see that there. So this is still earlier in the morning as the sun came up, lighting the eastern portion there, just from a little different angle. Oh, I just thought one of the workers from around there, I just loved the piercing eyes. This was just another worker there as well. And they were working around the area, just doing, again, hand embroidering. Again, very meticulous work, just by hand. We'll get back to that, but again, this was in a bus again, that we were stuck in traffic for 20 minutes behind cows. When the cows are there, and it's a double line, so you can't cross it, but they have the right of way, and they're not very fast, and they don't care, too. So it's just part of the thing. There's no horns or anything. I mean, people don't use it. It's just, you just wait, you go slow. That's it. Their cab system there, all these motorized tuk-tuks, you see those all over the place. This is at one of the entrances, that front entrance later in the day to the Taj. Again, I just love the dress and the old architecture. This is the Western Gate facility, so that's part of that structure we saw in the beginning where you go in. This is, again, later in the day, that same entranceway. This is where people go in. We had that shot from the early morning. You go into the Taj. Taj is off to the left there. And again, this is as people go in, and you see the Taj in the distance through there. So it's impressive as you're going through and you start to see that. And then I just like this. It was a bit, as I'm in that little passageway where it was dark, the Taj, the dark, with people holding their phones up as they start to first see it for the first time. So I love this just silhouette one to get it. Again, I'm trying to get something a bit different. The standard Taj as the day gets later with everyone around from a little, and that's the mosque. When you see the three buildings, the mosque is over here, and that building is the symmetry building just built for symmetry to keep it three buildings. One of the workers there, again, the muted colors I just like there. Some of the people. Now, come on, let's see what are they doing? I'll give you a hint. The hint is you'll see this all over the world, what they're doing. So it's not religious or due to Hindu. Line dancing, no. They are doing the standard thing. You'll see it in Pisa, Italy. You'll see if that is right. Chris Bosworth gets the prize. They are doing that so that the person taking the picture, they look like they have their hand on the top of the Taj and they're holding it. So they're doing that, and the person's telling them where to put their hand. If you travel now, you'll see that. No matter what tourist thing you go to, you'll see people doing that kind of thing, so it looks like they're holding it too. So again, the West intrudes into everywhere, so you'll see that. And the Taj from a little different angle. Again, some of the workers there, the colors are just, to me, I just love the colors. One of the minarets there, all marble. The Taj from a different view through the trees with one of the minarets. Real birds, not AI. Yeah, the call to prayer is usually done from up there. This is not that mosque has its own minaret too. These are more decorative as part of this. So usually, right, in a mosque structure, so this is a mausoleum, so it's not a mosque. So even though these are minarets, these aren't usually the call to prayer. But in a mosque, the minaret is where they do the call to prayer. But these four minarets are decorative around the four parts, and the tomb is in there with his wife. Another view of the Taj. Oh, and that was another one, just reflection only, that I tried to get a reflection of that and the people. Just that Taj scared the heck out of this little kid. And I just love here the mothers are trying to be instructive, everyone is serious, but kids are kids. Others just aren't impressed and will fall asleep. He actually was, I checked around the front too, he was fast asleep as well. Now, and we'll finish up with the other side. We were lucky enough the next morning to go to the other side of the Yukuma River, which was a tree farm, which the owner allowed us to get into to see the Taj from that. So this is one where you do not usually see the Taj. So this is sunrise coming up here. We're entering it. This is the Yukuma River. And so now we are from the side where people don't see. They come in from that side. The buildings are over there. People could walk here, but this is even though the Taj is symmetrical, this is the side the tourists usually don't see, unless they're walking around it there, but you don't see from the other side of the river. Again, a little different view. This is part of the tree farm here. The mist, as the sun came up, everything is enshrouded in mist too. And the Taj, even though it looks like the Taj, it's a little different view because you never usually see this there. Again, this is from the Taj from there. As it got a little lighter, they were doing some construction up here, so there's just working. But again, in a Taj, in this setting you don't usually see it in as a backdrop. This was just one of the workers just walking by. You can see the fence. They were building something here, some extension of the tree farm too. But the idea that this was just a tree farm where they were raising trees and these guys are, but sitting right here is one of the most iconic structures in the world, was just this, something that I just couldn't wrap my head around, that was just sitting there. When you're in the place where all the tourists are from, you expected to see it there. But here, we're just in the middle of this. This other worker was just walking by, and there in the background is the Taj. That's the mosque on the one side. The Symmetry building would be on the other, and in the back is the entrance. And this is just a little stairway that was leading up that I tried to get juxtaposition-wise over there. And so that is my last Taj shot. So that takes us through India, and that's it. So yes, so any questions? Yes, Bill.
One, I'm curious. You're on a non-photo tour with a National Geographic photographer. How did that work?
The question was, I'm on a non-photographic tour with a National Geographic photographer. How did that work? This was one where we got my wife would never go on a photo tour. That's it. She just doesn't have that interest. So the tours we always go on are the standard tours too. We found National Geographic sponsored this tour that was different. It was a hybrid tour. It was a regular tour, but they knew that people on it would be interested in photography, so they put a National Geographic photographer there, and they added some of the things like this. So it was not, and in the evening, he would talk to us, we'd go over some of our, so it wasn't like a photo tour. Most of it was the standard kind of thing. but we got a little of this. It's the only time I've ever seen that kind of hybrid, and it was the only way my wife went on it because she just ignored all the photo part and got to see all of the other. So yes, it was that hybrid thing. And I'm telling you, the most humbling thing, and a lot of you I know have heard this from me before, is that I was always convinced that the National Geographic pictures were better. In fact, I knew it was because they had better equipment than I did, so I couldn't do those. And they also had special access to areas that I couldn't get to. So here was 2 weeks with a guy who had a D850. So he had basically the same camera I did. His access, he was in the same spot I was. Yet at the end of the day, I'd look at his shots and go, damn, that is, why didn't I think of that or that? And that's the thing that's really humbling, is there is a lot to composition and everything else like that, and that's what makes them good, as well as, knowing their craft. So it was a humbling experience, but we were lucky there. Yes?
So if this had been a photo tour, what do you think would have been different?
If this had been a photo tours are usually for dedicated photographers. The way photography tours work is usually they get you up at 4 in the morning, so you get the sunrise shots. All day you're intensively shooting. Just everything is around, not seeing museums or things too. It's just shooting, waiting to get the evening. And the evening is all spent with critiques and going over and tips like that too. So it's really in-depth kind of thing. That's what most of them are like. So if you were a non-photographer, there'd be very little interest for you. For a photographer, it's great. So a lot of the photography tours center about that, where every waking minute revolves around that. But you can do, all the tours I've ever done, except for this hybrid one, were always just the standard ones, nothing to do with photography. And the thing is, yes, even though the time of day sometimes is not ideal and whatnot, there's enough around to photograph, that you really get some nice shot, but it's a way of traveling with companions, whether it's a spouse or not a spouse or a friend or anything too, where you could both go, even if they have no interest in photography too. So that's the way it's just worked for us. And I also don't know if I'm that I want to do dawn to dusk kind of intensive things too. So this is it just depends on what you're looking for. And there's probably things in between there. Yeah, any other questions? Yep.
So your focus was on photography. Your wife was on anything but photography.
Correct.
Is there anything that you can share or speak to as far as, we've seen some of your experience and some of your stories, that sort of thing. How was her experience different, and what kind of stories and things did she?
Well, first of all, if you do it the way we do it, you rely heavily on Verizon and their travel pass plan, which is the overseas plan, because I am constantly getting lost. I'm behind, and if I wait another 2 minutes, those guy, even though they said be at the bus at such and such a time, but another minute, and I'm sure that guy will move a certain way to get that picture, and then you can't find the rest of the group and whatnot and things too. So that form of communication has saved me multiple times as well. She loves the non-photographers who go on these. It's fine because basically I'm being ignored. She likes to look at like anyone else who goes on a tour. She gets shown around all of these places. They're showing, the guides explaining. They're going to music. When they go into a museum, I go out and just explore around the area. So they're going into museums and art galleries or things too and whatnot. And I usually walk a few blocks in either direction on my own at that time. So she's getting the tour the way anyone would who goes on it, with the guide explaining everything. She's very interested, sees all the architecture, hears all the stories and things too. So I'm kind of the odd, on these tours which we go on, which is usually about 16 people, I'm the odd person. There are other people who take pictures, but I'm the one that's kind of, off to the side or exploring elsewhere. And I just learned to kind of get back. So she's kind of with the rest of the group. It's almost like I didn't go. So she's with, So, but that's the way it works, because she really enjoys traveling. She enjoys seeing these. She enjoys the museums. She enjoys the guide explaining everything, too. So she's getting all of that out of it, and she really likes doing that, too. And so, and I, like I said, don't mind.
Does it feel like you end up having two separate vacations, or does it kind of complement each other because you can bring in different details and she can bring in different details?
Does it complement each other or whatnot? No, because again, she has no interest in what I do. Although I've trained her, and this is good, I've trained her to be a spotter. And most photographers don't have that. In other words, she's seen enough of my talk. When I come back from CPS, say, oh, look, the judges said this and whatnot. She knows enough about what's winning in the judges or what's not, or what I like as a good picture or not. She doesn't know. And so she will sometimes like recognize, or we've been in places where she said, oh, you got to come over here real quick. Oh, what's that? And she goes, that looks like it would be a good picture. She doesn't know why, but she goes, that's something I usually like seeing. And, a lot of times she's right, and she's got you some really, oh, yeah, that does look interesting. And then I go back on my way. But no, it's not two separate ones, because one, we're traveling together. We're on the bus together. We're eating all the meals together. We're spending the evenings together. And plus, in a smaller group, you get to know all the other people. So you know all the other people. So at dinner, you're all talking and whatnot. And during the day, as we're going around, I'm, with the group. It's just only occasionally I'm wandering off or staying behind. So most of the time we are. So it is a trip that we have memories together, and we spend the whole trip together too. It's not like she doesn't see me. So this is worked out for us. Everyone has their own arrangements, but it's a good way to, we both get it, and it's traveling together. I mean, I could go off and do this on my own, but we like to, each other's company. So we do that. So it's worked then. Yeah. We got a mic there. So the people at home.
Was the National Geographic photographer the tour guide, or did he go out on his own too?
No, he was actually, they had a tour. The way a lot of these work is you have a tour guide that's with you beginning to end. When you're in each city, you pick up another guide that's an expert in that city. And that's the way it worked. The photographer, National Geographic photographer, was one who just stayed with the group and helped us with photographs and things too. It was nothing to do with the touring thing. And some of these local guides, they are real good. In the city of Jaipur, it was these streets with all this congestion, and you cross, you're going to get hit. And the cars are coming this. And this old guy, he was our guide, and I say, this guy's like 85 years old. How can he be our guide? Because you get wise when you get older. So with his cane, he goes to the street. He sees the traffic. He grabs a crippled guy that's on the ground there too, with a crutch. And he said, and he's like the elder, so they all respect him. He goes, you. He shoots him a few, whatever, rubles or whatnot too. You. He gives him some instructions. And the kid goes, yes, and then limps across the street like that. And as the kid's limping across the street, he tells us, you cross with him. Because all the cars are stopping as this kid, is exaggerating his moves and limping. All the cars are stopping and whatnot, and we all cross. So the local guides really know their stuff too. But the photographer was there. He was very nice. He'd be around for questions. He'd be taking his own pictures too. But again, very, very, and in the evening, it wasn't intense. He would just show us some of his shots that he did during the day and give us a few little tips. It was not like a photo tour, it would be real intensive. But I really kind of picked his brain. I'd like to know, do you use back button focus? Do you use this? Do you use, that? What type of, settings do you use? Aperture priority? I really, because here's a guy who does it. So I just kind of learned from him. But most of it was the composition that I was really impressed with. They can modify nothing in their picture for National Geographic, and their Photoshop and things too are all done in-house. They have a person at National Geographic that they give their pictures to, their raw files, and they are professional retouchers or whatnot who do, adjust the colors and things too. So they're not doing a lot of that. And it's interesting is most of them don't use, and not most, I take that back, misspoke. A lot of the Nikon shooters that are professional, and I talked to them about it, do not use Photoshop. They use Nikon, the free one, Nikon NX that comes with it. And the reason is actually, and this is quite interesting, and I did the test myself, is A raw file out of Nikon or Canon or anything, Olympus, is proprietary. It's not colors that are coming out of there, it's numbers. So you got a whole bunch of numbers that are coming in that express what the camera saw in terms of color. Now, at the other end, the algorithm in the processor and the post-processing software takes that and interprets what type of color it should be. And what Photoshop does, since it's proprietary, is Photoshop guesses. And the guess is usually pretty close, but it's not exact. Whereas in Nikon NX, which is Nikon software, the raw file, the color that's interpreted from there is exactly the way Nikon, the way you shot it too. And on most shots, you can't tell a difference, but there are some that you can. So it's interesting that, and again, Photoshop, you're never going to be able to tell the difference, but these people are into the craft so much that I was amazed learning little things like that. That's a little side thing there.
Any other questions?
I actually have three.
Oh,
So first of all, how long was your tour?
2 weeks.
Okay. And when you went to some of the more remote areas, were there people that spoke any English?
In the remote areas, no. And actually in the city, there wasn't a lot here. In the bigger stores or the bigger cities in things too, you will find people that most speak English. But for these little shops and things too, most did not there as well, and in the local areas. But again, if you travel enough, everything is sign language. People don't want their picture taken, they put a hand up. People smile. It just is, there's not anything more than that. I asked the guide to ask them too. But they were in the bigger cities, yes. In the smaller cities or among just some of the workers, then no, a lot less than. And third question.
Third question, the monkeys.
Yes.
So I'm assuming they're pretty used to all the people being around. Were they docile or were they skittish?
No, they are aggressive. In other words, yes, they are. They're not afraid of people because these are city monkeys. They're used to, this is how they eat and whatnot. They're not afraid of people because they live around people too. And the way they get their food is they'll take it right from you. I mean, some animals are less aggressive, but these are just, they will come and they tell you ahead of, when you travel there, hold on to your things or whatnot, or we're getting off the bus and we're going over to that sandwich shop there too. If you have any food, don't have it on you because the monkeys in the parking lot will come and grab it out of your hands and whatnot. So they are aggressive too, to the point of you just don't want to, cuddle up to them or that type of thing too. Yeah, there was
Thanks.
another question on the side.
Any more questions?
Yeah.
Yeah, my a question. Any remnants of the British Empire?
Any remnants of the British Empire? Very, very little. Since 47, when it kind of shook off the British and things too, the architecture was mostly there from the time of the Maharajas, so the British didn't really build anything new. And you don't, other maybe some of the sports, the cricket or whatnot, I really didn't see any real remnants that the British were there. I mean, India it has its own problems. You could imagine with this many people, poor and whatnot and things too, and 1.4 billion. Now, 80% are Hindu, 20% are Muslim, or 18% are Muslim. That's 200 million Muslims. That's almost as many people as we have in the United States. Their thing is that to keep a country together of 1.4 billion people with different caste systems and whatnot too is an enormously powerful job. There's a lot of state subsidies there. The prime minister there, or the President Modi, has tried to make it almost a Hindu national thing. There's a lot of conflict now between repression of Muslims as well in order to get more political power there. And so these dynamics, there are a lot of other dynamics going on. It supports Russia in the fight against Ukraine. And I talked to them about this, and it's a very interesting point. It's not that they have any love for Russia or think, the Ukraine is a good thing too, but they have 1.4 billion people, and their economy survives on Russian oil. It's the only oil they get. So they come out a stance against Russia and Ukraine, and they get their oil cut off. That country is in huge trouble. So you understand that it's nice to be idealistic, but there are real practical problems in running a country of 1.4 billion people. And the fact that it runs at least now so smoothly and whatnot, and it's been kept together, is a feat. But it's not a feat without problems. But in terms of the British, no, I really didn't see any real remnants. Any other questions? No? Well, thank you very much for allowing me to present this. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard.